on, it's happening. And so he will benefit directly from that, much as he does by playing the oil market, and he of course gets the advance information on whatever amount of strategic reserves are being released. It's watching the market today. It's interesting because you would think with the promised or threatened amount of the strategic petroleum releases that it would be even more calming to the market. But with the amount of volatility, the market seems to have factored in maximum relief, and that's the problem with strategic reserves. If you telegraph too much what you're doing, and you have the information environment is broken a little bit by Donald J. Trump because it's just all blather all the time, then perhaps the expected or anticipated or hoped for positive calming effect on the market of the strategic reserves is mitigated somewhat. I wanted to go back to the drone portion of the program because that connects to what I assume will be the U.S. government or Donald J. Trump's further betrayal of the Ukrainian people, the folks that we should be helping above almost anyone else in Europe. We have our key long-term strategic allies in UK and in France and Germany, and Trump is pissing all over the shoes of Spain just because he has a grievance and he doesn't speak the language, and he is who he is. But Ukraine is just a natural ally that is, people that love democracy and a beautiful, brave people uh, with uh, with values that you could. I hate to go down the values line because what we used to assume were American values, of course, are also fractured by Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, and so that's a long term reclamation project there. But the Shahed 136, which is the drone that is was originally and is still manufactured in Iran. It was based on uh, some older technology stolen by Iran from originally from a German manufacturer. And then, as you know how these things go, it's instead of saying the nice way information transfer, when China requires our companies and industries that want to work in China, they require a certain amount of transfer, which is a nice way of saying industrial espionage at the end of a gun. Um, Here, the Iranians got the design for the drone. They made them very, an effective drone. They provided them to Russia, and Russia is manufacturing them in Russia. And these are, reportedly, they're making them a few thousand a month. When they're using them to good effect for them, bad effect for our friends in Ukraine. But what Ukraine has done quite ingeniously has developed sort of a layered defense system. Um, so what they do is they have an ever evolving. Talked about innovation a lot yesterday. They are extraordinarily innovative under duress, constant attack, and they keep working at it. And so they're not satisfied with one method of countering the Shahed drones that are attacking them consistently. So they have guys and gals in flatbeds, trucks, or faster moving vehicles that have large machine guns in them. It would not be out of the norm SOP to be countering drone attacks with three or four different layers. They will fire at them with machine guns. They will use uh, radio machines generating jammers, right? To radio frequencies, trying to confuse the drones as to, the drones are targeted. The level of autonomy in the Shahed is limited and that's evolving too. But the sophistication level, and that's we'll go to Lucas in a few minutes, which is the U.S. version. When the U.S. took the Shahed uh, basic system and modified it and made it Lucas, and that is a lighter uh, uh, vehicle that has the ability to operate autonomously. And of course, this brings in our friend Anthropic too. So uh, the I'm sorry, back to the layers is the machine gun, the old school, the machine gun, the jamming, the electronic waves. Reportedly, Russia and the U.S. are working on those pulse systems. What caused the what do they call it? Havana syndrome, or what that Russia was reportedly using these weapons to attack our diplomats in Russia. These sound wave pulses can attack the systems in the drones, the navigation. So you can have old school bullets, radio frequencies, and now in Ukraine they have attack drones that are much less expensive. The Shahed 136 is, depending on the options that you get it, like it's a new Subaru, but you can get the premium version, which has a jet propulsion system that allows the drone to get up to cruising altitude and conserve its fuel, and therefore fly a distance of 1,500, 2,000 kilometers, which is a pretty good distance. But at the same time, Ukraine is developing these smaller, much less expensive, like 25% of the Shahed's uh, average $20,000 cost, that are trained as kamikazes to take out the Russian drones before they do damage in Ukraine. And the reportedly the strike rate, the success rate of intercepting the Russian Shahed drones, is now north of 80%, and some sources suggest reaching 90%, which is 100%. Of course, would be great, but that's that's pretty amazing. And those are our friends. Lucas, as I mentioned, has been deployed has been deployed in Iran already. The exact number of these Lucas drones that have been used is not it's not a number that I'm comfortable talking about. Not because it's a state secret, because I can't verify it, but it's not surprising that we have the best tech in the world. The interesting tie-in to all of the news that at least that interests me recently, besides the your president lying about a Tomahawk missile that killed Iranian children on the first day of the hostilities, is Anthropic, of course, because that's all of our future, right? That is AI. Anthropic, the Pentagon and DJT getting in a pissing match with Dario because their feels got hurt, or they think they're being limited by common sense that they've shown an a consistent inability to deploy themselves. They don't they want to be unconstrained in all instances, including collection of data on U.S. citizens, which is troubling because, and we have an FBI. If they have a warrant to collect data, that's fine. But do you want Pistol Pete Hegseth collecting data on U.S. citizens, whether they're communist sympathizers or whatever? I don't want I don't want any part of that. I want nothing to do with that. And we have the agencies that are authorized under law to collect that information. But no, Pentagon shouldn't even be in the question. The Pentagon wants to collect data on folks that we are fighting against. That's great, but we've got enough of this, between ICE and Border Patrol and DOJ, sub FBI, and other agencies, NSA, collecting enough data on American citizens. And as we've talked about before, it's not just a handwritten report that gets thrown into a file cabinet and shredded after X amount of years. It's AI. Then the information collected is forever, and it's augmented and added to, and all of that. So it is a complete mess to think about. Just anything to do with Pete Hegseth and the word intelligence is a frightening thing. But so the Lucas drones, as I meant, they're probably twice as expensive as the Shahed. They're 30 to $40,000, depending on the version, depending on what the options, air conditioning and a cup holder, whatever is included in the package. But they're obviously very sophisticated. They have autonomous capability, which is the other part of that Anthropic prohibition, the guardrails that Anthropic wants to enforce, right? That Sam Altman's group, when they came in, tried to pick up the pieces of that contract, um, and see if they could, well, they're gonna make some money, of course, with government contracts. But Anthropic's supposed to be the best currently at that particular task. Altman comes in and says, "No, we're also going to have some guardrails, but maybe they're not as strict as Anthropic's, but we still want to set down guidelines, for the very real reason because everybody understands that Trump and Hegseth are morons and that they will use these very advanced toys to great and ill effect." And they will have apps. They don't like being told no because they're spoiled pricks with grievances, the worst kind, right? And I understand that if you're in the business of defending American citizens, you want to have all the best toys all the time. That's understandable. And you don't want to limit the tools at the disposal of the American military, the US military, when we're perhaps when we're in an adversarial position um, vis-a-vis China, right? Because they have the next best, most sophisticated AI tools. Right? And pretty safe to assume that China has everything we have pretty soon thereafter, because their military intelligence is like I talked about, on a per capita basis, they have hundreds of thousands more humans detailed to the business of military intelligence gathering. They have m- many X, 10X more than we have. And then there's your boy, Vladimir Putin, running in the background and getting whatever information he needs from his asset on Pennsylvania Avenue. So it's a delightful stew of intrigue, betrayal. It sounds like a miniseries, and it would be fun and exciting if American soldiers were not getting killed, if innocent Iranian girls were not getting killed, or boys. I'm not, um, but I mean, obviously, double X better than any other version. It's miserable, as war is always miserable, as killing of innocent human life, or any life, is horrible and miserable. But we're in it. We have to be, if you'll excuse, we have to be in it to win it, and get enough. Trump's not going to stop, because then we get into the ego thing with Donald Trump, which is a horrible, horrible place to be. But the strategic petroleum dump doesn't do enough on the economic front. He gets worried about the elections. So he's on one side, he's like, okay, should I end the conflict now and we'll just let Bibi continue on and do what Bibi wants? That's going to be, Netanyahu wants to continue. For folks that argue that the 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 sole reason that US went in now when it did was Israel, I don't buy it. It is a factor. It is undeniably a factor, but I don't take that as a given, that but for BB, US would not have been in, right? But when you reverse it on the getting out part, BB's going to be dragging his feet and his ass and everything else to keep the conflict going, because he wants to eliminate as much of the IRGC and the other dangers, real or perceived, or generated in BB's mind, or generated for the purpose of continuing the conflict to keep him out of custody. So there are all of those beautiful things going at the same time. And it's not cynical to think that Bibi Netanyahu would continue hostilities and put his own soldiers at risk for his own personal gain, because he's done it before repeatedly, repeatedly, right? Israeli soldiers died and hostages died because Bibi drew conflict out longer than it need be drawn out for his own personal, for his own purposes, his own corrupt purposes. And Trump is the kind of guy that has and will do the exact same thing. So again, we can't stop that now. We can't stop all that. John Thune could, airplane going up, excuse me. Hopefully, the good guys. John Thune could help slow things down, make an off ramp, but now that we're in, as many commentators quite correctly uh, argue, we have now increased the risk of a terrorist attack here in the homeland, right? That's that's not disputable. That by ratcheting up, we the new supreme leader. It's important to recognize not a good okay, not a good guy. His dad, not a good guy. Both men will say the regime responsible for the death of Americans and Israelis and others beyond dispute. But if you want to try to understand where he's coming from now, he reportedly was injured in I guess in the initial attacks. That he is reportedly alive but injured, or his legs were injured. He's a mid late 50s, but we don't know much about him except that he was, more on the admin side. He, involved with the IRGC and intelligence side of the operation, but we don't know that much about it. But on or about the first day of the hostilities, he was injured, and his father, his mother, his wife, one of his children, and 3 or 4 cousins were all killed. Are we surprised that he's not positively predisposed to talking, opening up lines of communication with the American president? I'm not particularly surprised, especially when you look at their track record. They've been preparing for this day with redundancies. That's when, when Marco Rubio gets caught telling the truth. Sometimes it's shocking. And then he has to walk it back because it doesn't follow the administration's narrative. The same thing happened with the president of Iran when he came out and said, I'm sorry about, I didn't mean to attack our Arab brothers and sisters. I think he just said brothers because that's, what they do. But that we didn't intend to harm um, KSA and UAE and our neighbors and our brothers. This is about the Americans and the Israelis, the bad guys. And he was forced to walk that back because the IRGC generals and the those folks came out and said, that's not the posture we're taking. And all of this, of course, was prepared. There were contingency plans, knowing that Israel would try to decapitate the entire regime. So they had plans to execute certain, sequenced attacks using various means to attack Israel, U.S. military bases, and those that assisted the first two, right? And so that's the justification for continuing to fire on Dubai. It's like, no, there's UAE has a military agreement signed with the United States, so now they're a legitimate target. That's the part from, if I'm looking at it from the Iranian side of, what do I? Yeah, my Farsi is a little bit rusty. Um, uh, what do I know about their planning? I don't know. We can only we can only surmise from the intelligence we gather, right? But that, continuing to hammer the UAE is probably, they could do without that. They can, keep focusing on Hormuz because that's the kill shot right there. The mining, and we go in and we get rid of the mines. We attack the vessels that place the mines. We have underwater drones. We have all sorts of things, right? but just to create that doubt, right? That's all you need. The doubt, even if it, whatever it does to Trump, I don't care. But when it causes the insurance companies to say, no fucking way, we're not doing this. That's too much of a risk. That's Lloyd's of London. That's the big insurance companies that handle big boats like that are like, no, no, this is not something we're doing. And Trump has said that he is offering insurance or reinsurance or some brand of enticement to get the boats, get the oil moving again. But it's just so many layers. Like, is it a mine? Is it a missile? Is it a kamikaze? Is it a guy in a boat with explosives coming at us from the air, from the sea, under the water level? And they can, the Iranians can perpetuate that disruption for quite some time. And each week that continues, it really does massive damage to the world economy. And that's exactly what they were set up to do with the redundancies in their plan. Was we get into it with the US or Israel, all hell is going to break loose. How long can we hang in? And can we last longer than the Americans? The Americans meaning Donald J. Trump, not like a resolute, intelligent leader, but one that's looking over his shoulder and checking his watch for the midterm elections, and his legacy and his feels and his grievances and the corrupt people that put money into his son's bank accounts. So the people in UAE and KSA, the tech leaders, the tech bros, all the people that were at his inauguration are like, you are absolutely, because as we talked about, petroleum based products. It's not just gas at the pump. It's whatever that freaking clown from that senator from Tennessee, who's whatever he's some complete dick. That not his name, complete asshole. Like talking about the my constituents are talking about motor oil. Motor oil is getting real expensive. It's been expensive. Um, Genius. But all of everything, it's easier to assume that petroleum based products, byproducts, distillates are assume that they're in everything and then work backwards. They're not in gold, they're not in silver, they're not in Bitcoin, but they're in fertilizer. Growing crops is a popular pastime and occupation around the world. Having food, you know, relatively speaking, more affordable than it's not. It doesn't go into caviar, maybe, but it does go into growing wheat. Seems to be pretty popular, like bread for people. So, and then the transportation of that product that is made, whatever it is, of the agricultural products. So those petroleum distillates, every component part of the oil that comes from the earth, why will excuse me, why even as clean technologies improve, we'll still have a need for those extracted sources of petroleum for some period of time until AI teaches us how to make a synthetic version, and then RFK will tell us that it's not good for us. So yeah, it's gonna be delightful. But I guess salute back to the Ukrainian ingenuity. I said ingenuity, which is my which is a slip up that was uh, foreseeable. What one thing that they're doing right now, and again, constantly evolving to counter, to buttress, to bulwark against the threat of the Russian drones, is they're making little cheap ones themselves that will intercept, and they're also using ones that are the drones that are the Russian uh, drones use small motors that are less expensive to operate. They're essentially like a Subaru motor knockoff, right? Because they're relatively light. That this 20-kilo drone can carry a payload of X amount of explosives, and but these ingenious small Ukrainian interceptor drones that like the kamikaze style that just impact the drone and blow it out of the sky before it hits a population area. They're experimenting with jet propulsion, and there's a pulse jet propor- propulsion, right? So jet, I'm not a freaking engineer, but if you look at an airliner, traditional, you're sitting there in a seat 17A on American flight X that isn't going anywhere today, and you're looking out at the engine, this giant one or two jet engines that are out on the wing, and you're like curious kid, and you're like, how does that make this go right? So, the jet engines, hungry, fuel eating machines made by GE and others, is, they draw in air, they blow fuel into that air, they ignite it, and that causes lots of things to happen, like fire and explosions, but in a controlled sense, that your jet propulsion is that you're creating that reaction, igniting fuel comes out faster than it went in, and repeat. How about that? Right? All the science professors, any professors that are still working after the introduction of Claude, they're not worrying about me. They're worrying about AI because I ain't taking their job, and because I'm not a rocket scientist. But you understand what I'm getting at. Jets, cool. Jets, cool, fun things on planes, right? So instead of like this expensive, heavy, fuel intensive jet engine, they have a pulse system that, just like the name implies, it does, some of these drones have a secondary propulsion pack on top of it to get it into play, and then it carries on with the fuel that's on board, and the pulse systems allow them to, instead of burning fuel, to use a little bit at a time, pulse, thus the pulse, and be more efficient. They're a little bit loud, but if the only person you're not worried about waking the neighbors, you're worried about saving your family and the neighbors from the freaking drone. So this pulse system allows them to be a little bit more efficient. It's much less expensive, and they also fly sometimes up to 2 times faster than the drone they're attacking. So they're able to intercept more efficiently because they're making these just, I mean, you have to marvel at the ingenuity of these beautiful Ukrainian, our friends, that that Trump has been a traitor to, but we as Americans love them every single day. And I had a photo that I shared in my feed that so many people enjoyed that was, International Women's Day. It was 5 Ukrainian women in the armed forces in their uniforms, looking beautiful, bright, and managing to smile even in these ridiculous times we live in. But it just inspires you that these people, they just went through perhaps the coldest winter in decades, just coming out of that now, and it's still going on, you know, fighting in mud, frozen mud, horrible conditions, family members killed. I mean, I mentioned, the desertion rate on both sides, the number, the 2x casualties on the Russian side to Ukraine. So it's miserable for every single person engaged in that, except probably DJT and Putin. It's absolutely freaking miserable. But our friends, the ingenious, innovative, brave Ukrainian people, are figuring out ways to whack these drones at a higher rate, every single day. They learn a little bit more. And I'm going to just wrap up with this, what I mentioned yesterday, which is disturbing. It's a puzzle, right? So, and we'll never get until we get the truth serum, which it seems truth serum seems to be in very short supply these days. But think about yourself and your President Zelensky, right? You still need the U.S. Whatever you can get, we're promising not as much as we should, and we're delivering much less than we're promising, and we're effing them in 27 ways till Tuesday, right? We're, and at the same time, we're using our Patriot batteries to protect our troops. Understandable. Also, we have to provide additional Patriot missiles and batteries to Israel because they're tearing through the Patriot missiles at a tremendous rate. And, that is a weapon on the other side is, cheap drones. If you start slipping them through and hitting population areas in Israel at a higher rate, then Israel will be forced to use more expensive interceptors. And each time, whether they're successful or not, once you fire the missile, it's gone. So we're running into that as the United States. Israel's running into shortages on defensive military material, right? And that is we have Trump had some of the manufacturers of weapons and such, the Raytheons of the world, to the White House recently, asking all of them to step up production. But, practically speaking, they can't just flick the switch and produce 100 Patriot missile batteries on the weekend. That isn't how it works. Trump has been back. He'll blame Biden. Trump will blame Biden for Trump's mother's death, probably, because he reflexively blames anybody he can before he takes responsibility for anything himself. Did Biden run down the military's stockpile inventories of defensive weapons? I don't know. 14 months in? How about this? Take take Joseph Biden's name out of your mouth, right? Donald J. Trump. You own this shit now. This is all you. If you didn't begin with your geniuses in the Pentagon, taking an inventory and assessment of where you were, you've got some continuity. You have some generals that weren't black or female that are still at the Pentagon with you that were there during the last administration. So if you didn't ask the right questions and make the right decisions and order the right products to replenish inventories that had fallen below optimal, that's on you, DJT. So you wear it, own it, it's yours. Uh, we'll just one more salute. Thank you to our friends in Ukraine for everybody in Europe fighting for democracy against what's going to be happening in France, in Germany, in the UK, in for your homeboy Victor Orban. That's next month. It's April, right? And all of those matter. Can't win them all, but you have to do your best. And people in the we have people in the United States government supporting. I don't want to just say Nazis all the time because that gets a little bit blunted as a descriptive, right? Because well, you call everybody a Nazi, so what does that even mean? That is fair, right? You default to, the lazy colloquial label of the evil of white Christian nationalist extremists, fascists, ethno fascists, Nazis, ethno fascists, right? And we've talked about before, there are lots of, it's like, it's like bubble gum. It comes in a lot of different flavors. So there are a lot of different kinds of fascists. And there's the Mussolini pre-Hitler version compared to Hitler, the ultimate bad example. So, but this is all going to happen, Hungary, in a month. German state elections. France is still a year out, but it's going to come really quick. Just like our midterm elections are coming quick. James Tallarico beat the beautiful and talented Jasmine Crockett, and they're going to face eventually John Cornyn, I would imagine, because the AG is just a miserable, miserable human being. But that whole thing about he's going to hold his decision to withdraw from the Senate candidacy, Republican Senate race, he'll only withdraw if and only if they pass the SAVE Act, which is disenfranchising lots of voters, Republicans and Democrats. But of course, it gives the Donald Trump, if you didn't notice, added into his quote unquote executive order proposal SAVE Act, which is bullshit because that's not something you do with an executive order. But you can see that he's, you know, he's a game player, right? So what he did was he layered in to the main components of the SAVE Act to gender issues to fire up the base. He said, voter ID, got to do it. 2, 3, whatever it was. And then he said, and in this Voting Rights Act, no more transgender participants in girls' sports. And then another one of those mega dog whistles to say, hey, the Democrats are doing it again. They're doing it. They got boys swimming against Katie in the pool. So, and the Democrats took the bait. Democrats took the bait last time, including arguable. Kamala Harris had like a 15-minute campaign, so I don't like to throw throw shade at Ms. Harris. Uh, she is a brilliant and accomplished human being. So, did did the did the Democratic Party in general, including Ms. Harris, because she was at the top of the ticket, and the Biden campaign and everyone else, did they take the bait on these gender affirming care issues to the detriment of the overall campaign? Absolutely. It's not, it is not a subject that is open for debate. It's a matter of degree. Did they take, did they allow it, did they allow those distractions to lead them astray to focus on other issues while Donald J. Trump was revving up his rabid MAGA red hat brigade? Yes, yes, yes. Can't do that again. They can scream, we have just have like a short message about being for the dignity of every human being. And then unfortunately, maybe leave it at that till we get through the actual elections. Sound like a cop out? Sounds like it to me. I just said. But we have to, as distasteful as it is, as distasteful as it feels, there is no plan B. There's only winning right now. That's what we have to do. So that's our exit strategy is win the House and the Senate. We missed the Senate by a voter. We're going to make it. It'll be more narrow, and maybe with a Rand Paul and a Lisa Murkowski, we get we frustrate the president's ability to do one more stupid fucking thing. Incremental, unfortunately. But for right now, let's get through the midterms, and then we can make a plan for the 28 general, and we'll pick off these special elections as we've been doing, and we'll stay committed to collective action, and we'll support no kings, and we'll keep unsubscribing and doing the little things where we can feel like we're involved as a team in taking shots at the autocrat. So yeah. So I'm back to that. I would think that at some point I would figure out how to more gracefully disengage the stream because I've been failing. And today I came out and it wasn't sunny, and now it is. So I'm going to probably get uncomfortably close to the camera again. But you'll excuse me for that. I'll do the best I can because I'm not that bright in the tech space. Sorry, not sorry. That's just the years talking. So, in any case, so thank you, and restack, subscribe, and we'll move on to another day. And I've been working. If I didn't mention yesterday, I don't recall because I I wrote some stuff out yesterday, and I don't know if I covered it on the stream, but I'm just working on a Sunday program that is more of a once a week business program that talks about the intersection of AI, talent acquisition, hiring, working. I was, if you're looking for a great book, older than me book, then Studs Terkel, right? Uh, Working is a great book that looked at kind of uh, readable because it kind of looks at the lives of various Americans engaged in different professions, and what is that like? But I believe it was probably written maybe in the 60s, maybe in the 50s. I'm not, a while ago. It was kind of people that were coming out of the post-war era, not this war, the earlier one. Anyway, so I just was thinking about that because of my background in business and talent acquisition and numerous other things. Because I am a jack of some trades, master of absolutely none, but very curious, and uh, and think that that would be fun because it is something that affects all of us, whether you are beginning your career, whether you're mid-career, whether you're nearing retirement, whether you're retired. Then the impact of AI and very different in different industries. And I've spent so many years in the hospitality industry and still do so. And public facing businesses will be affected differently. AI and tech will assist, will improve, if not improve, then change public facing businesses. But your sous chef, maybe he gets some more efficiencies in the kitchen and his order processing, his prep schedule, his staffing, and all of those things. But you still got to cook the food. And until Elon's robots are doing more, I hope Elon's robots just get on the vessel with him and keep going. But you know what I mean. And but at the same time, if you're an accountant, you're feeling very different about the impact of AI and work. So that's I'm working on that for April, where I'll do on Sundays do a dedicated business hour, just talking about what's affecting, impacting, changing, failing in AI and the workplace. So more on that later. Thank you. I'm going to see if getting close will help, and I will try to do this with one fat thumb, and we'll wish you a good day and catch you sometime tomorrow. Thanks very much. That means, excuse me, do that stand up, give you the pan shot, and get somewhere closer to shade so I can actually see.